Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Munciana Courtside, Season 7, Show 3. 7 years I've done this show next to this guy, and I thought for a second that tonight was going to be his first miss ever. They've had pictures of me. I've been brought in from Mexico. I've been brought in from all over the country. But Randy was going to miss tonight. Wife started to have a little bit of pregnancy issue last night. Thought he was having the baby boy last night.
Yep.
He's still on the way. He may leave the show at some point. So if he's gone, we've got our trusty Frump, the producer, will fill in.
Yep.
Randy, let's get it going, Biggs.
We talked last week about games of the week that we wanted to talk about. LaPorte, Crown Point. Crown Point was high on our radar. They were really kicking it off. They did end up losing to LaPorte in 4.
Well, we talked earlier in the day, and the whole North is like that. You talked about LaPorte beating Crown Point, and Munster beats somebody, and then somebody else beats Penn, and Penn beats. It's wide open. That's fun volleyball. It's kind of like Fort Wayne was last year. A little bit every day somebody was getting picked off, and I think that makes for a really interesting time. The season's been awkward to say the least, and so it's kind of neat to see old rivals still stirring stuff up, and that's good. That's good for the soul.
Yep. Another game was Heritage Christian. We talked about, but they did sweep Rebuff. Rebuff has a really tough schedule to start the year, but too much Raven Coleman and the crew.
Oh, Raven Coleman, the matchup nightmare. Snyder doing a great job dishing the rock.
Yep.
I mean, that team is a really good team. With Lovey Wallace, no doubt a favorite for the 2A state title. I'm not so sure they're still not, but they're having a great start to the year. And Colvin and Snyder and the gang still undefeated.
Yep. And the last one we kind of talked about, HSC, Providence, Floyd Central, and Lawrence North all went down south to battle. HSC sweeps Providence and Floyd Central. The game that kind of stood out to all of us was Lawrence North going 5 with Providence.
Providence, Horning was a little beat up, had a sprained ankle, was who knows where she was at. Horning at 70% is better than most people at 100. She's a very good player, but she was a little tweaked. But HSC going in there and sweeping them, to me, I thought that was bigger message than Lawrence North taking them 5. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah.
But when HSC walks in and sweeps, perennial powers. Floyd Central's been down for a couple of years, but Providence, that was a team we had as a sleeper, a team that I thought had a shot to nail this thing down, and that is a huge one. First time that Jason has ever beaten Providence in the regular season.
Yeah, I think he's also the longest undefeated streak he's got at this point.
7-0. 7-0. He's made that very clear.
Yeah, a few times. All right, we're going to get into the next part, talking about the next games of the week. Yeah, so we got first game that I really am excited about is September 5th. It isn't as big as it normally is with Assumption coming into town, but Avon Invite. They got Carmel, North Carolina, Newcastle, Crown Point, Seymour, and Avon. Should be a really good day. They play all 5 teams play each other, so we get 4 solid matches.
Well, I think that you look at that, and the Avon Invite, one of the biggest invites in the state year in, year out. A couple of years ago, they had teams from Knoxville come up. They had Assumption. COVID's hurt us a little bit in the sense that we can't have teams from out of state basically coming in anymore. I mean, Assumption can't even leave their county.
Yeah.
That's an issue. Then the other issue is number of teams in the event, space. But this event isn't what it was, but is probably the premier tournament that's been played thus far this season. And once again, going back to all the COVID trash, I'm just happy to have some degree of normalcy. A tournament.
Yep.
It's a tournament. It's a tournament with some very good teams. I think that Newcastle's the cream of that crop, but I think Carmel's dangerous. I think Crown Point's dangerous. Avon's always in the hunt.
Yeah.
It should be a good run. It should be a good tournament.
It should be. Talk about another game that kind of stood out to me up north. And Drain, we talked about them having a very tough schedule. Off to a great start for this year, 5-1. They'll be taking on Munster up there. So, and they have steadily put a good resume together.
Yeah,
with their wins.
Tripped up a couple of times, but they've beaten some good teams. They're very good. Andrean, we talked about. Andrean's got kind of the same formula that some of the teams in. I remember the first time we ever won a state championship at Wapahani. Everybody was looking at us because we had lost 6 or 7 games, but we'd lost 6 games to, 6 teams that were in the top 20 in the country.
Yep.
And no one playing no 1A schools at that time, and so. Andrean's got that same formula where they're going to play the best that they can play before tournament time comes around, and they're going to be seasoned. Great athletes. That should be a fun match.
Yep. And then we'll talk about, we're not going to get to the mud sock yet right this moment, but Tuesday, since the layout of it being on Wednesday's show, Tuesday night, it might be the marquee matchup of the season. HSC heading over to old Yorktown.
Well, we were just talking that Yorktown went through the whole month of August and didn't give up a point. Not 1 point. Didn't play one set either. Yorktown undefeated as of last night. We always talk about going undefeated and when teams can get through August. Usually HSE's schedule is front-loaded, a lot of competition. You mentioned Brebeuf playing a lot of competition. Yorktown's another team that tends to bite off a lot of competition early in the season, and they've had none. I thought my biggest concern for them last night was they hadn't played a match.
Yep.
And, that's going to be an interesting matchup, for Yorktown. It's going to be an interesting matchup for HSE as well. That's a good week of volleyball.
Yeah. And then we'll get to our next part. We're going to talk about Raymond James. Got another one. Love it or shove it?
Shove it. I'm a big fan of love, so this will be interesting.
So I'm going to throw out one. I'm going to say some team goes undefeated in 2020. Love it or shove
it? I love it. I thought for sure Yorktown and Dwenger were going to go undefeated at some point. They weren't going to play ever.
Yeah.
And so they would go undefeated, but both of them open their season now. I think that Dwenger's got 2 wins, and Yorktown's got their lone match from last night. But no, I believe that there will be an undefeated team. I think that the real key is how the COVID thing plays out, and right now most people are playing it. If you're losing stars, if stars are getting quarantined, most of those games are being postponed. And so at first I thought, teams would lose because their stars would be done, would be incapacitated, and that's not the case. And so I think that people can protect themselves. I think that the other thing, don't be surprised if there's several undefeated teams because there's going to be a lot of matches missed.
Yep.
And if you miss the right match, here we go.
Yeah.
And so, I love it. I love that. Someone is going to go undefeated in 2020.
I like it. Second one, we talk about Yorktown being a great defensive team. We talk about kind of the offense you've been talking about with HSC and Fishers and different teams like that. If you're picking it, what are you going to go? You saying defense wins championships? Love it or shove it?
Oh, I love that. That's kind of a testament to my Schondel roots, playing for Don and growing up around Steve and Dave and Johnny and then, Westline and all the great coaches that have come out of this area. Those old Central teams, they were very flashy and they were very dynamic, but they were great defenders and great ball handlers. The Burris teams never made mistakes. And they had flashy athletes. They had some great athletes, but they just defended like mad. The same blueprint that I used at WAP was really taken from those guys.
Yeah.
And so I've always been a fan that defense wins championships. You look, and there's some mighty good offensive teams in the state. I think that HSE is as loaded as you could possibly be. Fishers, Stephen Peake's got a great job there. He's got a great job there because they're loaded with athletes. And really, once you can get some ball control and defensive zest about them, some junkyard dog defense where their mentality is about just a relentless pursuit, they're going to be there as well. But, Newcastle, you look at them with Shaftmaster and Smith and the gang, unbelievable offensive weapons. But I'll take defense at the end of the day. When it matches up, when two great offensive teams come together, the best defensive team wins.
Yeah.
The question is what happens when the best defensive team comes together with the best offensive team, and that's that comes down to errors.
Yeah.
And it's a game of errors. And I've said all along that it's not what certain teams do, it's what certain teams don't do. Those old Burris teams, those old Central teams, they made no mistakes. I watched Central play against Cathedral a couple years ago. It was some of the best athletes I've ever witnessed on a volleyball court. Way back when it was Dave Schondel versus Gene Kesterson, and it was a war. Gene was very net oriented, and Dave was very back 20, and it was one of the best state championships of all time.
Yep. And then we'll get
defense won that, by the way.
We'll talk about the third one. Love to shove it. Newcastle High School is the biggest threat to HSE winning a state title.
Wow.
Love it or shove it.
Yeah, so that says that HSE gets all the way to the state championship game based on the pairings. Fishers is a heck of a challenge. I don't think you can ever overlook them. I think that is a very well-coached team and a very good, very offensive team. There's some teams in the South. Providence is a very good team. I just, I look at it. I don't think that Newcastle is the biggest threat to HSE. I'm going to shove that off the table. I think Newcastle can beat HSE. I think Newcastle is one of the teams that I think is got to be mentioned in the hunt. I don't think they're the biggest threat because they're too similar. HSE is very similar to Newcastle in a lot of ways. So I think that when you're looking at threats, you're talking about teams that are the polar opposite. I believe that's Yorktown. I think Yorktown is the biggest threat to HSE, being that they're so opposite. And when you played on the beach in doubles, you hated the guys that bomb balls. You'd sit and pop those up. It was the guys that chopped and slopped and moved the ball around that made you run that you hated to play against. Yorktown is that type of team that they're going to win every long rally. They're going to physically wear you down because points are going to take forever. They're not going to be terminal. They're going to keep balls in play so long that they're going to allow you to become terminal on the negative end. Yeah. And I think that's a type of team that will test the will and test the mental moxie, if I may, of a HSE. They've got a lot of young kids, and they've not been tested thoroughly throughout their careers. And I think that's the type of team that could really frustrate them. That's just my thought. And that's one of the reasons I'm not saying HSE beats Newcastle or Fishers. I'm just saying the biggest threat in my mind is probably Yorktown to what they're trying to pull off at HSE.
Yeah, just like you just said there, I'm going to throw it out there. I'm saying shove it on the last one, but I'm going as far as I'm saying I love it that someone goes undefeated in 2020. And I love it. The defense is going to win a championship. Yorktown will win the 4A state championship running away. They will go undefeated. They will beat, who knows, HSE or Fishers in the finals. I'm not sure that HSE is going to get out of sectional yet. It's going to be interesting when it comes to it. Put in a permanent marker. It's on there, big dog. Yorktown wins the state championship. Undefeated. Undefeated. They're going to roll through people. I watched them literally play Wapahani last night and controlled it from 0.5. They were down 4-1 and then ran off after that. Single digits in the third set. Too much ball control. Chalk it up.
Wapahani is a very good team, and Yorktown just destroyed them on their own floor. So, Wapahani's not HSE. Strong words. And, folks, he was up long and late last night. He was at the hospital with his wife, and he's got a lot of things on his mind. But he said his piece there, and you heard it here first, impermanent marker.
Yep.
You now just put your face up on every blackboard in America. So, no, I don't doubt it. If you told me that Yorktown was going to end up undefeated and win the state championship, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
Everything's possible. I just think they're the type of team that's going to really be frustrating for a lot of folks to play in this day and age, and everybody's a microwave generation where they want results like this, and these cats are willing to sit back and wait.
Yep.
And that's impressive.
All right, going to get to a couple, maybe a question or two.
Yes, the question being asked is, will the IHSAA consider quarantining the state finalist teams a couple days prior to the event?
Well, that's a good question. The bubble fever.
Yeah.
I think not, and the reason I would think not is IHSAA is an education first. It's governed by the Department of Education. It's an education first business. And so that would be maybe part of it. The other part of it is it's not really cost effective. Being able to make sure that you keep everybody in the right place at the right time is really difficult, and I know those guys have a formula for down the stretch. I would think not, just because of expense, but interesting idea.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of the thing I've been wondering. The reason why I kind of like what HSE and Fishers is doing, being virtual right now, is they're not seeing every single student on a daily basis, so they are a little more quarantined in reality. But when it comes to November, who knows where we're going to be at that point.
The elections. November 2, I just want you to know that. All right, let's go.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get to the next part. We're going to talk about some of the players to watch.
Every week we do this thing. It just amazes me, the level of players. And looking at some of the numbers. Bloomington South really having a quiet big year. Kennedy Cole, a big reason, senior right side hitter.
Lefty.
Heading to Western Kentucky, and I will tell you, Western Kentucky is one of the most beautiful programs in America, coached by one of the best coaches and men that I've ever known, Travis Hudson. And all they do is scare the heck. They're Gonzaga. What Gonzaga is in basketball, Western Kentucky is in women's volleyball. They're terrifying to play. They're a system-oriented group. And if Kennedy Coyle is going to a school like that, then she's a bona fide player. And it looks like, looking at her numbers from her junior year and looking what she's doing her senior year, she's definitely one of the best players in the state.
Yep. Close to 300 kills, 22 aces, 74 blocks, 175 digs. Really a big physical kid over there, a big lefty. But she's going to be a kid to watch out for down the stretch.
Kara Creasy out of the Fort Wayne area, Blackhawk Christian. A load to handle in that small class division, but she's heading to Louisville. And last time we saw Louisville, they were taking out Texas in the NCAA tournament. Once again, a real program, and real programs obviously recruit real players, and Kara Creasy is a real player.
Yep. She had, 245 kills, 7 aces, 86 blocks, 51 digs. And like you said, she's smallest class system, but she is 6'5".
Yeah, no, she'll be a real pain in the backside for somebody in 1A. I mean, that's an amazing matchup.
Yeah. Talking about defenders.
Bayley Cox. When I talked about the similarities between HSE and Newcastle, they've both got massive firepower. Both have really solid middles. HSE's setting is a little more seasoned than Newcastle's, but Bayley Cox fits right in. I mean, she's got Mills and Lori to battle at HSE, but Bayley Cox is one of the best defenders in the state of Indiana, and at times maybe the best. More mature than ever before. Game is evolving daily, and her hunger is evolving daily. There are some people that COVID sparked great gratitude and great urgency. And Bayley Cox was one of those guys, and I think that people are going to see this as the season goes on. She's going to have a big load on her shoulders at Newcastle, having to pass a lot of balls, defend a lot of balls. She is spectacular. Heading to Georgia, and Tom Black is starting to build a pretty good program in Georgia.
Sorry, I'm reading some of the live chat. It's ridiculous. That's all I got to say. We'll get to that later. But she did have 62 kills, 35 aces, 8 blocks for Bayley Cox, 284 digs, and 58 aces.
Those 8 blocks, because she had to hit outside
Yes.
last year for the state champions, gave up her bro slot to Zoe Conway, who's now at Ball State. And Bayley Cox was an outside attacker, this year flat out playing bro. Speaking of bros, young lady from Yorktown High School heading to Wright State, Jenny Morey. Jenny Morey is really a very underrated player, a kid that quietly goes about her business, but quietly takes you out of your game. Everybody I talked to last night, my boys told me that she went on quite a service run, tremendous server, very good ball handler, and a really gritty competitor. Jenny Morey is old school. She's old school. She'll compete, she'll battle with you, and she's somewhat of a grinder. And she's one of the reasons, when we talk about Yorktown's potential, there are 3, 4, 5 kids, on that team that are going to be Big Ten, Power 5 liberos. And they're going to be playing in multiple positions. They go 5, 6, 7 deep right now. They have 2 freshmen that are going to be real deal players in a year as well. And so that team is loaded with ball handlers, and Jenny Moore being one of the best.
Yeah. Jenny, 27 aces, 30 assists, 375 digs, and 5 kills last year.
And I think she's going to have a major impact in the Horizon. I think that in the Horizon League where Wright State plays, I think she's going to be phenomenal. Emma Kaylin will be the last one we talk about tonight. Really solid setter. Providence has got some good setting. Parika and Kaylin are both solid players. She's heading to Indiana State.
Yeah.
But that group out of Union Club and Providence High School does as good a job of training setters as anybody in the state of Indiana. And Emma Kaylin is one of them. Now, being able to dish to Horning all those balls, 929 assists, I'm sure that Horning had her fair share of those. This kid she's one of the reasons I know that they got beat up pretty good by Jason Young's squad at HSE this past weekend. But I really think that this kid could be something special, and I think that she's one of the reasons I still have them in the hunt. I love seniors at the end of the season. I'm going to really love seniors after this year because it's been such a jacked up year. But Emma Kaylin heading to Providence in the Big East is my 5th player of the week.
Like you just said, almost 1,000 assists last year, 99 kills, 46 aces, 42 blocks, 162 digs. All well-rounded player right there. All right, back to the questions. Anything we got?
Coming in from J.R. Moore, who's your dark horse pick for the season? Who's going to come in late and stir things up, mix things up?
He's the one with the markers, so I'll let him take this. He's putting everything in permanent. You tell me who you think your dark horse is.
It'll be interesting. I think if you look at 4A, I know we have a nice little feed going right now. I like Fishers in the situation because they have so much depth on several issues. I think their ball control is going to be suspect, but if they get hot and take care of the ball, for a couple weeks, there's no reason why they can't make a run instead of an HSE or somebody out of that sectional. If you're talking 3A, I would say I like Belmont. Belmont's off to a good start. They played twice now. They were runner-up last year. They had a really good season. Emma McMahon's a great defender, does a lot of good things for those guys, and they got some young kids that are up and coming. But I think DeWinger's probably the cream of the crop for that. And then 2A, I don't got anybody for 2A. I think your Wapahani and Heritage Christian are the two that stand out to me. I don't see a dark horse in that group. And then 1A, quietly is set back a little bit, is kind of Pioneer and LCC. LCC didn't make a deep run for the first time in a while last year. Got upset in their sectional. I'm interested to see what they got coming back, if they can make a run there.
Yeah, I think that when I look at it, not to break down every class, I did a really nice job of that. I think that my dark horses would be Providence, who now everybody's throwing dirt on. HSE beats them in this one tournament, and who cares who wins the first one? I want to win the second one anyhow. I like their. I've always been a Providence fan. I like their culture. And that's a culture that survives a loss. Just because, one thing goes wrong, it's on to the next one for them. And I like Providence. I think they're well set. I think they're very well coached, and they have a star. And they have a star that's playing out. And it's a team that plays hard for each other, plays hard for their coach. I like them. And then I guess if I had another, it would be Fishers. both in HSE's way. Fisher's only because they're just so deep and so talented, and they've got some, they've got a great setter, and they've got great pin work. Allen is starting to bomb the ball on the pins, and I think if they could get it going, their ball handling is the only thing that would be a question, but those would be my dark horses.
Yep. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get into the next one. It's kind of been one of the people, a lot of people have been liking the new phone zone.
Yeah, no one knew who was on the line tonight. No one knew who was coming up.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, sweetie.
How are you?
I'm good. We got you on, so you're on this little show right now, and
oh gosh, I'm live.
Yeah, you are live, so
all right,
just watch your mouth. But wanted to bring you on just to talk a little about Yorktown volleyball. I'm going to get Steph a little later in the year, but I wanted your take on a couple of things, and let the people hear. I've been bragging on you for the last 3 weeks, so I wanted to make sure they knew you were real. So for those out there, Ellie Stinson is the high flying outside hitter. High flying outside hitter for the Yorktown Tigers. Couple of questions for you. One, give me a brief synopsis on this season right now due to COVID. Your thoughts. And it can be ugly if you want it to be. You frustrated, whatever.
Oh, okay. So I would say so far, I mean, we've had to deal with a lot of adversity. Whether that meant a few players were out, then we got quarantined for 2 weeks on top of the 3-month quarantine where we really couldn't do anything as far as summer season, and that's really when we grind. Like I said, we've had to deal with a lot of adversity, and I think the Yorktown volleyball team's really grown through it. We've grown together through it, and we're just so hungry, and we're not taking any games for granted so far. So I'm really excited to see where this goes.
Well, I thought the same thing. I said that to a couple of people asking me last night how the Wapahana game would go, and it went exactly as I thought it would. I've always said that the last thing people need is you guys to be motivated, and it sounds like you are. And I know you well enough that you're always gracious for anything you get. And so, that's a fair comment. I don't think people realize how frustrated you were, and the fact that you didn't give up a single point in the month of August because you didn't play a single game in the month of August. Tell us a little about your team. What are some of the things that you've seen so far? What players are standing out? Who's the surprise?
Yeah, okay. So we have 4 seniors returning. That'd be me, Jalen, Jenny, and Abby Johnson. So right now our seniors, like Coach Bloom said, we're doing really solid. Jalen's killing it up in the front row. Jenny, her and I on the same page mentally. Just no balls hit, and we've had a lot of unexperience, which has been so crazy, but they have really stepped up to the plate, and I'm so proud to see that. So that would be Gretchen Moore, Emily Hill. I think that those are our sophomores. And then we also have Karen and Rory, our juniors, who are coming in for our DSs. And then Caitlin Judge, big old Judge on the right side, clamping people. So, and Ava, she's also our other junior who's really stepped into a big role. And I'm really proud to see where she's grown so much since last year. It's been really exciting.
What do you guys have to do to win state? Randy, I don't know if you were watching earlier. Randy just went on, and it's going to create a war. I'm sure I'm seeing little things come down the side here, messages. But Randy just went on and not only said that Yorktown would win the state championship, that they would go undefeated. What do you guys have to do to win a state championship, Al?
I think right now, just the way we've been playing is just taking it one game at a time and being very motivated, like you said, and just hungry. Every time we stepped out, we got something to prove. And I think just proving it on every single point of every single match is what we're going to need to do.
All right. Last question for you, sweetie. Favorite quarantine activity?
Okay. I think what's gotten me through the quarantines is probably working out. That's a pretty sad answer, I guess.
No, it's a great answer. It's a great answer. If anybody knew what kind of shape you were in before the quarantine, they would be frightened now.
Yeah. The first quarantine we were allowed to get together, so I think some of my favorite memories are from that. Just getting together and working out. Just everything was player led, and it was just so cool to see everybody step in and without a coach watching, go 110%. So that was pretty cool.
Well, if anybody knows you, Allie, that you've turned yourself into one of the best leaders I've ever seen. And I've said all along that the quarantine will have gifts. It'll leave gifts behind. It's not quite like Christmas, but there'll be several gifts left in the wake of this. And I think that you're smart enough and you always are aware enough to see what those gifts are and to grab them. And I think it's one of the things that makes you special. I think it's one of the things that makes Yorktown and what Steph does special. And I think it's one of the reasons why Randy probably said that you were his favorite to win the state championship. But I appreciate you, sweetie. Who do you guys have next?
Tomorrow's senior night versus Pendletonites.
Well, good luck on your senior night, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you play against HSE on the 8th.
Yes. It should be a good match.
It will be,
Appreciate
sweetie.
you having me, guys. Thank you.
Love you, sweetie. See ya.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right.
What a good kid.
Oh, yeah.
What a good kid.
And last night she came up to me after the game. She said, where's your Yorktown shirt? I said, I'm at the game trying to watch both teams, not trying to be, pick a favorite. But I was thinking, I can't give away my details for tomorrow's show.
You sure in hell picked a favorite tonight.
I definitely could not give it away yesterday. I had to make sure that Jason heard it live. Just like that. Coach Jay.
All right.
All right, going to talk about our top 10. We're going to get into that and kind of roll there.
Yeah, some good teams. I like giving some love to some of these folks that are right on the fringe. Heritage Christian still my fringe. They were really, I was kind of edging them towards 10 this week and kept them just off of it. They're 7-0. Good win against Buff.
Yep.
For Buff, well-coached, good team. Castle's 5-0. Castle had a great run last year. And their team that I think is always going to be competitive coming into the season. And then we talked about Munster.
Yeah.
And Munster, with a loss to Penn, but they beat a good LaPorte team. And you're going to see in a minute, Penn and LaPorte have just traded off with each other. And the North is kind of a competitive mess, but it's beautiful. There's parity beyond belief up there. Probably
a lot of good teams.
Yeah, for the longest time it was Penn's world, and then it became Crown's Point's world, and now you see LaPorte and Munster and everybody else getting engaged in that, and it's going to make for a really neat North run.
Yep. A lot of good games. All right, number 10.
Speaking of the opposite of North, Bloomington South, the other end, 6-0. We talked about some of their firepower earlier today with Creasy, and this Bloomington South team is quietly 6-0, led, and any of those guys are longtime volleyball guys, still led by Eugene Kim.
The name of the past.
That blows my mind. Eugene Kim was a coach for the Union Army in the Civil War, and is still leading Bloomington South to this day. And I did not know Eugene was still in it, but he's doing it obviously, and he's doing it well. 6-0, number 10, Bloomington South for the first time ever ranked.
Yep.
And that's a land of Bierman.
It is, and like you talked about, a lot of good wins though to start. Brownstown Central, Seymour, Trinity Lutheran. I mean, you're going on and on and on. You got Floyd Central also, which has been a powerhouse forever.
Yeah, but we got to go back to Tom Bierman. It was down in that end of the world. Tom Bierman, one of maybe the best volleyball player ever to come out of Ball State University. Still not in the Hall of Fame. We need to write about that. because this guy was one of the all-time greats. Chris Bierman's dad, Kendall Beer's grandpa.
Wow.
He built that program, and it's neat that Eugene's still running down there.
Yep. All right, going the opposite, like you just talked about, number 9.
All the way back up north, tugging it all the way to the top is Penn. Very well coached, historic program. Had multiple state championship opportunities. This team is as good as anybody, and I think the North is going to be really heard from this year, from that group, because of this beating each other up constantly. I mean, these guys are good, and so Penn rolls in at 9 in my book.
Yep. And number 8, the only person I lost to.
LaPorte. And LaPorte's only loss was to Munster, who is in our honorable mention. And that's what I'm saying. I think that for a long time, Delaware County, Muncie, had a huge legacy in volleyball because of the fact that they just beat each other constantly. I mean, it was just great volleyball. And obviously led by Burris and Central in that time. But Delta was always good. You had 2002 when they won every class.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, and 4. And those guys played each other constantly, and it made for a really, really special year and a really special volleyball feel.
Yeah.
And the North right now has that with LaPorte, Penn, Crown Point, Munster, Adrian. There's some good volleyball being played up north, and I think they're going to make each other better as they go. But number 8's LaPorte.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, they finally got on the board. Number 7.
Dwenger undefeated. Same as Yorktown. Didn't drop a point in August, but finally opened up last week. 2 wins. Mechanical and Heritage. Neither huge wins, but they got to play, which is a huge win for those young ladies. And Ava Hudson and the gang, they're going to be really good. And the Hudson kid is going to be spectacular. I wish it's one of the things that really stinks about the COVID thing, amongst others, is that it would be nice to get out and see some of these young kids play. But Hudson we'll talk about later in the year when we get into young players. But this Dwenger team is legit, and I think a legit shot at 3A state championship.
Yep. All right, number 6.
McCutcheon
on a bye week.
On a bye week, and bye week is code for Corona.
Yeah.
They got Vidit, and so they're out for a couple weeks. But this team is really good. Claudia Cohen is everywhere I go. Somebody's asking about her, and she is a violent competitor, and they're going to be tough to beat in any match that she's in. And any match she's on, if she's hot, they can beat anybody in the state. And that's HSE. It doesn't matter if she's crazy hot.
Yep.
She was really hot against HSE the first time and gave them a little bit of trouble. But this kid's special, and so is that McCutcheon team. They're my number 6, even though they're 1 and 2. And they've had quality losses.
Correct. And like you also talked, that could be a dark horse in the 4A. You might think, Fisher's HSE, you get through that brutal sectional, and you could have a hiccup.
Well, somebody had said, I saw on the side over here, I see little things popping up, that Fishers can't be an underdog or a dark horse. Well, they can't, because HSE is casting such a large shadow over everybody that honestly, anybody other than HSE,
your favorite, is
going to be considered a dark horse of sorts. And Providence, and McCutcheon is one of those teams that could do that, because Chacon's just got to get hot for a couple of weeks, and she's capable of doing that. So number 6 is McCutcheon.
Yep. All right, we're now number 5. Slept a little bit.
One slot. Providence, they lost to HSE, number 1 in the state at the time. They lost in 3, and it wasn't as competitive as I thought it would be. A little bit of that may be a Horning being tweaked. The other part of it may be HSE may be that good, and you got to be aware of that and keep that in mind. But Providence was no match for them on that Saturday. But like I said earlier, don't throw dirt on these guys. Too well coached, and too much of a legacy. Number 5, Providence.
I think their highest ranking so far. Number 4,
Fishers. I think you had them higher last year at the start of the year, and then all heck broke loose, and they had a tough go of it. But Fishers is, every time I look and I see a kid walk through our gym or anybody's gym, and I look and go, my gosh, that kid is a great athlete. And I said, where does she go to school? It's Fishers. They're loaded. Steve Peak's got them rolling. Chances are they're going to run into the mud sock battle next week on the 10th with HSE. Both undefeated. Sad thing is you won't have the craziness going on.
They won't both be undefeated. Yorktown will be HSE.
So Steve Peak gets to go in as the only undefeated coach in the mud sock battle. I think that'll be a great matchup. I think those two teams are very similar. HSE a little better ball handlers and ball control, but everywhere else it's a pretty good matchup. And Jada Allen and Cam Hayworth are a real deal. And if those two get hot, they're much like Chacon. They can hurt anybody.
Yes, very true. All right, number 3.
Number 3 in my book right now is Yorktown, even though they were just anointed state champions earlier tonight. Yorktown took apart a good Wapahani team, as we referenced earlier. Yorktown's going to be tough to beat because, it's always about what they don't do. They will not make mental mistakes. They are the best ball control team in the state, bar none. That's a given. They do have more firepower than what people think. They are well coached, maybe coached as well as anybody in the state of Indiana. But the thing they've got going for them right now that they've never had before is they've got more motivation, more gratitude, more grit than I've ever seen them have. And this team is a hungry team. And as you heard Ellie Stinson say earlier as our guest, that she's motivated because they built themselves. Teams that can learn to coach themselves are dangerous. Steph Bloom will take care of everything outside of that court. But inside, having people that can run the show makes them dangerous. They're number 3.
Number 2.
Newcastle. They're off until they play Cathedral on September 3rd. But, they've been out of action as well. And, they're 1-0. Which is hard to believe that they've only played one match. But, Newcastle and Yorktown are the kind of the big show up in this part of the state. But I think that Newcastle, if they can remedy some of the ball handling things, Newcastle has got the potential to beat anybody. But Newcastle, in my book, is the best team in the state until they're beaten. And I don't see them getting beat for a while. They've already missed the HSE match. I don't know if that was rescheduled. I know the Yorktown match is towards the end of the season. I don't see this Newcastle team losing for a while. And the good news for them is it gives some of these young guys. Madden's a senior at setter, but she's young. She's never had a chance to play because she's behind Mel Schaffmaster. That I think it's important for her. I think it's important for Bayley Cox to get really in a rhythm as a bro in the high school game. I think it's important for them to get everything in order for Stacy Baldwin, who's a first-year coach at Newcastle. So that this is going to bode well for them. I think they're going to go through, in essence, somewhat of a scrimmage run for a while until they start getting into some of those conference games of importance.
Yep. And number 1.
HSE. Brownsburg, a good win. Floyd Central, not as good a win as it used to be, but a good win. And Providence is a great win.
Yeah.
The first
they
time.
Got another win last night.
Yeah, over
Harrison.
And it's the first time that.
So they're 7-0 now.
First time that Jason's ever been 7-0 in his career.
Tip of the cap.
You would have thought that was going to be the case coming into this season, and they got a rough road coming up. We'll find out in the next 2 shows what these guys are about, because they got a Tuesday night battle with Yorktown, which we'll most definitely talk about, or especially after you said your piece, and then the next Thursday we'll preview next Wednesday their Thursday night match in the Mudsock battle with Fishers, which is one of those games where records don't matter. Ability doesn't matter. It's just a lot of raw emotion. And, Peak is excited as he's ever been. It's maybe his best team, so we'll see. But until then, we are gone, and we'll see you next week.